was planned on 16th October at 5 p.m. So due to some technical as well as the network problem, we are not able to conduct on the day. So today we rescheduled the program at 11 o'clock. So I welcome on behalf of the, I welcome today guest Mr. Gavini Venkata Supparao, consultant Indigo Airlines, for this morning webinar, Introduction to Engines Fitted on Airbus A320 aircraft. I think he is a right person to explain about our brief lecture or seminar about this propulsion side. So he is having a lot of experience, more than 40 years experience in this area. I welcome all the students and the faculty members for this webinar. I like to thanks to our management for continuous support, motivating us to conduct like this webinar as well as this seminar through online. Even during this pandemic timing, we are able to connect through online the world, the eminent peoples in aviation area. So I hope that today we are having the experienced person in the propulsion side, Mr. Gavini Venkata Supparao, is going to give a lecture about the propulsion area. Thank you to all the students. I request Dr. Asad to give an introduction to our guests.
Thank you, sir. I would like to introduce the guest for the today. The guest for the webinar today. So today's webinar title is Engine Fitted on Airbus A320 aircraft. The speaker is Mr. Gavini Venkata Supparao. So he did his BTech Mechanical Engineering from College of Engineering Anantapur, JNTU, Hyderabad. He has a DGCA approval as A320 ground instructor, technical and special operations. He also has a DGCA approval as ATR 72 600 ground instructor, technical and special operations. He also has an approval as a FAA advanced ground instructor. He has worked as a ground technical instructor at CTE Central Technical Training Establishment, Hyderabad, Air India from 1980 to 2015, training pilots, cabin crew and flight dispatchers on A330, A320, A319 and A321 aircrafts. His last position held at Air India was Deputy General Manager for Operations Technical Training, taking care of ground training, technical training at CTE Hyderabad. As in charge of the ground technical training, he was also responsible for issuing operation circulars to pilot, cabin crews, and flight dispatchers. He was participating in the committee meetings, flight safety subcommittee meetings as a representative of director training. He took VRS from Air India and joined Indigo Airlines as a deputy chief ground instructor at IFI Gurugram in November 2015. He was promoted as a chief ground instructor Indigo Airlines at IFI Gurugram in August 2016. He is working as a chief ground instructor till March 2018. That is about it. Now he's presently, one second. In April 2018, he is working as a consultant of Indigo Airlines, and he is presently working as a consultant of Indigo Airlines. So he has also trained pilots of Indira Gandhi Rashtriya Udan Academy, Rai Bareli, Uttar Pradesh on King Air C-90A aircraft between 1982 to 1990. So this is all from the speaker. I hope that the students will be able to listen to a very good webinar today, and he will share his experiences, and students and both faculty and the students will be greatly benefited from the meeting. So over to you, sir. You can start the webinar.
Okay, thank you very much for giving me a very good introduction. Okay, I will start the discussion. In the good old days, the engines that are fitted on the aircrafts were piston engines. But nowadays, piston engines are fitted only in some training aircrafts, not in the commercial aviation. Then turboprops were developed. Turboprop means there is a gas turbine engine which is driving a propeller which is normally in the front of the engine, And when the propeller is rotated by the gas turbine engine, the propeller would be giving the thrust. So that is the principle of the turboprop engine. But the problem with the turboprop engine is the power that is produced by the turboprop engines is limited, and these aircrafts were not able to fly at very high speeds nor at very high altitudes. Then turbofan engines were developed. Turbofan is nothing but a fan which is enclosed in an air intake. You can say it is a modified version of the turboprop. Propeller being outside the engine, it was having some restrictions of size of the propeller and all that. Whereas in case of turbofan is inside the air intake, and they can have more number of stages. And the turbofan size also they can have a bigger size so that the engine would be able to give more thrust. And nowadays, most of the commercial aircrafts are fitted with turbofan engines of different thrust ratings and all those things. Then turbojet also was fitted in some commercial aircrafts like Concorde, which was flying at very high Mach numbers. But turbojet is not thermally efficient. It consumes a lot of fuel, but the aircraft would be able to fly at very high speeds. And because of the requirement of the high speed and then high maneuverability in the defense aircrafts, turbojet engines are fitted in most of these fighter aircrafts. So these are the different types of engines that were developed in civil aviation as well as in the military aviation. Now coming to the engines that are fitted on A320 aircraft, there are different types of engines that are fitted on these aircrafts. In the initial period of the 320 aircrafts, they were going for engines fitted by International Aero Engines. There were different models, of course, giving different thrust ratings. I will tell you what was the problem with these IA engines at a later stage. Then CFM, which is a company which is having its base in US and Canada. So they also were giving the engines in the initial period on the A320 aircrafts. Then when the new aircrafts were designed and developed, then better engines were manufactured by Pratt & Whitney and CFM. So these aircrafts are called as A320 Neo, new engine option. That means these engines are newly developed and they are fitted on these aircrafts. Why they have gone for this new engine option is there is very good fuel economy for these engines, and the operators are getting the benefit of using these aircrafts which are fitted with these new engines. So these are the different types of engines that are fitted on A320 at the moment. So let us just see what is a gas turbine engine and how the gas turbine engine works. I have got some videos. I will just play the video. You will get some idea. Are you able to see the video, Dr. Ross?
No, sir.
I don't know.
It will take time. Just to click on the
Click on the
control and click this. Control. Now you click. Press control, then click.
No, I don't know.
Yeah, it will come. It will come.
Sir, are you able to see in your computer, sir? Is it coming in your computer?
No, it is not coming on my computer also, because so many YouTube videos I was clicking, so many were open. Now I am just
Number and யார் இருக்காங்க இங்க வர.
yeah, now it is coming on my this one. Are you able to see? No, it has gone.
Sir, you can share your PPT with us. We will run it, sir. We'll run the video. You can give your comments, sir.
Okay,
We can
just
run the
video from your side. Okay, I am just sending you the link.
yeah. Please, not just the link, sir. You send the entire PPT.
Yeah.
So that
What is
others,
I am
sir,
forwarding the PPT. What is the? Are you able to see?
ஐயோ வைக்கீவா
You able to see? Not,
no, sir, not coming.
not,
Sir, you can share the PPT with us. We'll run the PPT. You can.
yeah, I am. Can you just give me your email ID?
I'll just put it on the chat window, sir. You can just mail it there.
Yeah.
Please mail it in this, sir. I'll run it from you.
Yeah, I will. Chart window. Yeah, I got it. I'm just forwarding this one. No, it is taking only asad.aero. I don't know why it is not taking. You sent it on the WhatsApp also? Yeah, I sent it. Have you received?
Send the mail, sir.
Yeah, I sent the mail to that email ID.
Okay. I'll just check it. Yes, received, sir. Received. I'll put it.
Okay, you can just show the video, first video.
Wait.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, the second video. Yeah.
Hear that, boys? What is it?
Just another. Narrow body aircraft.
Hey, my atoms are shaking. Strange. It sounds far, but I bet my last proton, that beast is much closer than you think. Hold on, people. It's a LEAP-powered aircraft. A leap into the unknown.
What on earth is a leap?
Something you sure haven't seen before. Everybody get ready. We're going in.
Someone please tell me what just happened?
Sure. The engine makes a plane move forward. Thrust is produced by air being pulled in by the fan blades. Then this air is ejected at greater speed through the exhaust, creating the required pushing force. This is a principle of Newton's law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So how is this possible?
General Souls, come with me to the bypass.
Extreme sport freaks, with me, we'll hit the compressors, combustor, and turbines.
The LEAP is a high bypass ratio engine, which means that a large amount of air bypasses the core of the engine to be ejected directly into the exhaust stream. The fan acts like a propeller. Its curved rotating blades accelerate the airflow into the engine. Lighter composite materials provide better efficiency and resistance.
Here come the compressors. Get ready. Things are gonna heat up. Feel that? It's the low-pressure compressors squeezing us. Now, the high-pressure compressors. You're gonna feel the difference.
Ultra-efficient compressors deliver optimum air pressure and temperature conditions for combustion.
It's rising up now. Let's get toasted. Gentlemen, meet your kerosene counterparts. These guys are gonna light up your day.
Already? We usually mingle inside.
Not anymore.
I thought there'd be more of you.
Normally, yes, but in this engine, fewer of us are needed.
This little kerosene particle is right. The LEAP engine burns less fuel than former engines. In addition, the fuel nozzles mix fuel and air before they enter the combustor, creating a homogeneous mixture that minimizes the peak temperature during combustion. This technology significantly reduces emissions.
Okay, let's go.
The combustion chamber. This is the heart of the engine, where energy is created through combustion of fuel and compressed air.
Are you ready? Here comes the final blast.
What a boost! Where are we now?
Turbines, let's transfer our energy to them. This is the last extreme stage before we join the soft team. Enjoy.
Advanced material and aerodynamics make the turbines much more efficient and durable. The pressure and speed of the hot gases provide the force needed to turn the turbine's end and shaft, which in turn drives the compressor and fan.
Come on, guys, don't hang around. We alone are responsible for 90% of the thrust from this baby. Here come those adrenaline junkies. So, how was it?
Fast, hot, and fantastic.
What a trip!
Are you kidding me? It was us in the primary flow that did most of the job.
Not exactly, kid. It's teamwork. We definitely need each other.
Okay, thank you for playing that video. I will just take few minutes before we go to the next video. As all of you have seen, a gas turbine engine has got an air intake in the front, then compressor, which may be 2 stages or maybe 3 stages, depending on the design of the engine. Then we have got a combustion chamber where the compressed air is mixed with the fuel and it is burnt, and the hot gases would be going to the turbine stages. Again, there could be single stage, 2 stages or 3 stages in the turbine. And then the hot gases will be going out of the, you can say, exhaust pipe. So in a turboprop engine, as I told you that the gas turbine will be driving a propeller and the propeller is giving the thrust. In turbofan engine, as you have seen already, in the front of the engine you have got a fan, and the fan would be giving the thrust, which is driven by the low pressure turbine. In case of turbojet engine, you have got only compressor, combustion chamber, turbine, and there is an exhaust nozzle. And the exhaust nozzle is the one which is giving the thrust. So this is how the gas turbine engine is able to give us the, what do you say, thrust or maybe power on different types of engines. And I will explain when I go to the subsequent slides. Can you just play the second video, please?
How a CFM 56-5B turbofan engine works. To make an aircraft move forwards, we need a pushing force or thrust, which we create by making the air accelerate between the front and the back of the engine. This is basically done by the large fan at the front of the engine, through which air passes at a high rate. These are the various components of the CFM 56-5B. The fan, which is a large diameter propeller. The low and high pressure compressors with 13 stages, which, step by step, increase the pressure of the air as it flows through them. The combustion chamber, in which jet fuel is mixed with air and burned. The high and low pressure turbines, in which the pressure of the hot gas is reduced as they drive the compressors and fan. There are 5 turbine stages, 1 high pressure and 4 low pressure. And finally, the exhaust assembly. The CFM 56-5B is a high bypass ratio engine. The primary flow passes through the combustor, while the secondary flow passes only through the fan. 80% of the engine airflow, accelerated by the fan, is directed into the bypass duct and provides 80% of the engine's thrust. The primary flow passes in succession through the compressors, the combustor, and the turbines, before being ejected rearwards through the exhaust assembly. The air is compressed in the low and high pressure compressors, and its temperature can reach 450 degrees Celsius, after which it enters the combustor, where fuel is injected and ignited. Burning the mixture of fuel and air brings the temperature up to 1700 degrees Celsius. Finally, the accumulated energy is extracted in the 5 turbine stages immediately after the combustion section. The pressure of the air drops as it passes through the turbines and makes them spin. And the turbines, whose shafts ride within one another concentrically, in turn drive the fan and the 2 compressors. The air is then expelled through the primary duct, joining the air from the fan stream. A turbofan is therefore a flow cycle engine. Air is compressed, then heated by burning fuel, after which it passes through the turbines, which drive the compressors and the fan.
Okay. No, you can cancel this. There is no need of. Okay, this video is giving you again the same. What are the components of the gas turbine engine? Here I want to just explain about some terms that were used in this video. He was talking about the bypass ratio, and he was trying to explain. Bypass ratio is the ratio of the air which is bypassing the core engine with the air that is going through the core engine. And normally the bypass ratios on engines fitted with A320 are around 5:1. That means 5 parts of the air is bypassing the core engine, whereas 1 part of the air will be going through the core engine. And the air that is going through the core engine, that is the one which is compressed by the compressors, which is mixed with the fuel and then burnt in the combustion chambers. And then this is the air which is going through the turbine stages also. And the air which is bypassing the core engine is the one which is giving us nearly 80% of the thrust, so that the aircraft will be moving forward whenever the engine is running at high power settings. And he is also using the terms, the concentric shafts. So there are some shafts which are called as N2, N1. N2 shaft is the one which is connecting the high pressure compressor with the high pressure turbine. And this is the outer shaft, you can say. N1 shaft is the one which is connecting the low pressure compressor and the fan stages to the low pressure turbine. This will be inside the N2 shaft, and they don't have any mechanical connection between the N2 and N1 shafts. So the connection is only aerodynamic connection. And of course, there are some bearings which will be keeping these shafts in place when they are rotating because of the airflow which is going through the engine. And of course, there are some problems with these bearings and all that I will take it up maybe at a later stage. Okay, if you see over here, this is the cutout diagram of the gas turbine engine. There is a fan, there is a low pressure compressor, high pressure compressor, high pressure turbine, low pressure turbine, combustion chamber. So you can see the N2 shaft is the outer one, and N1, which is colored green, is the inner shaft. And here he is also trying to give you some more information, like fan drive gear system. So this is the system which is available on the Pratt & Whitney engines which are fitted on the new aircrafts, 320 new aircrafts. So what it is doing is, it is having a very big fan, but we cannot rotate the fan at high speeds because the tip will be getting into the sonic range and sonic speeds and all those things. So what they are trying to do is, they are having a very big big fan, but that will be rotated at a very low speed. So that is what is done by this fan drive gear system. There is a reduction gearbox which will be driving the fan at a lower speed, even though the turbines are rotating at a higher speed. So that is what is given over here. Then you can also have a look at the variable bleed valves and variable stator vanes. These are given in the compressor stages so that the stalling of the compressor can be avoided. So what do you mean by stalling of these gas turbine engines or stalling of the compressors? When the airflow is not able to pass smoothly, then there will be some areas where the air will be just getting compressed too much, then suddenly it will try to expand. You know that whenever highly compressed air tries to expand suddenly, there will be some energy dissipated, and that will be causing a lot of damage to the engines. So to avoid the damage, what they are doing is, they have got a variable bleed valves. That means they will be taking the bleed away from the low pressure compressors so that the airflow will be smooth in the low pressure compressors. And there are also some variable stator vanes. Stator vanes are the vanes which are ahead of the rotating blades, and these will be directing the airflow onto the blades at a proper angle so that the rotating blade will not be getting into stalling angles. So these are all provided inside the engine, and these are controlled by a computer, and the computer is programmed in such a way that the engine stall will not be happening most of the times. But still, there are some problems. The stall might be happening in the engine. The pilots will come to know what about the stalling of the engine, and then they will be taking care of the engine by following the recommended procedures. Then you can also have a look at this accessory gearbox. Accessory gearbox is driven by the N2 shaft in any aircraft, because N2 shaft is the outer shaft. So there is a drive from the N2 shaft coming to the accessory gearbox, and what are all required for running the engine are mounted on this accessory gearbox, like high pressure fuel pump, lubrication pump, and even for the engine, electrical generators are also located on the accessory gearbox. And there are some additional generators which are powering the computer that I was mentioning to you, which is controlling the operation of the engine. Like that, there are so many things which are provided on the auxiliary gearbox. Again, that depends on the design of the engine. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the computer that is fitted in the A320 aircraft, some of the models. So which is called as FADAC, Full Authority Digital Engine Control System. So some of the aircrafts are also calling this as Electronic Control Unit, ECU. So this is a digital control system or a digital computer which is giving the complete engine management. So for redundancy purpose, it has got two channels. So one channel will be working, the other channel is standby. If one channel fails, the other one will be automatically taking control. As I told you that it requires a dedicated power supply. So there is one alternator which is driven by the auxiliary gearbox, which would be supplying the power to this particular FADAC. In the initial period of engine starting, it will be taking it from the aircraft power supply. Once the engine attains a particular speed, then it will be depending on this alternator for its operation. So it is mounted on the engine casing, and there are some interface units which will be connecting this FADAC to the other aircraft signals or other aircraft resources. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, before I go into the details, all of you know that there are four forces acting on the aircraft: thrust, drag, lift, and weight. Thrust is always pulling the aircraft in the forward direction. Drag is pulling the aircraft in the rearward direction. Lift is pulling the aircraft upwards, and weight is trying to pull the aircraft down. A combination of these four forces will be making the aircraft either to accelerate or decelerate, make the aircraft to go to higher altitudes or to come down to a lower level. So what the aircraft would be experiencing during takeoff run, the engines would be providing the thrust so that the aircraft will be accelerating on the runway. So once the sufficient speed comes, again there are certain parameters the pilots will be observing which are called as V1, VR, V2. V1 is the decision speed. That means once the V1 speed is attained, whatever may happen to the aircraft or to the engines, pilots have to get airborne. They will not be able to stop the aircraft on the remaining part of the runway. So that is what is defined as V1, decision speed. VR is the rotation speed. So at what speed the aircraft has to rotate, that means the pitch angle has to be increased. So that is what is defined by the VR. And V2 is the speed that the aircraft should attain when it reaches around 50 feet height at the end of the runway. So these values are defined. So when the aircraft is accelerating, it will be first coming to V1. Then when the VR is reached, then the pilots will be rotating the aircraft, and they have to anyhow maintain that V2 speed by the time the aircraft reaches 50 feet at the end of the runway. After that, they will be climbing the aircraft. The climbing of the aircraft can be done by either maintaining a lower speed so that the rate of climb will be higher, or by maintaining whatever is the recommended speed and whatever the result will be coming as the rate of climb. Because the thrust, they cannot have a very high thrust for more amount of time. So it has to be limited to a few minutes. The reason is, as you have seen in the earlier video, the temperatures that are developed in the engine will be very, very, very high. If the engine is running at such a high temperature for a prolonged duration, there will be damage inside the engine. So the pilots can use the thrust, high power thrust, only for a limited time period. Afterwards, they have to reduce the thrust, and whatever is the thrust that is available, they will be using it to make the aircraft to climb. So that is how they will be climbing. That means when the lift is more than the weight, they will be gaining altitude, and then they will be having a level flight for some time. And after that, they will be descending. How the pilots will be descending? They will be just reducing the lift by reducing the angle of attack of the wing. So once the lift is reduced and the weight is more than the lift, then the aircraft will be coming to a lower altitudes. Then when the aircraft is ready for landing, they will ensure that the sufficient lift is available, sufficient speed is available on the aircraft, so that they will be able to have a controlled approach and then landing. After landing, they have to keep the drag more than the thrust, so that the aircraft will be able to decelerate. So these are the four forces acting on the aircraft when the aircraft is in flight: thrust acting forwards, drag acting rearwards, lift acting upwards, and weight acting downwards. All of you might be knowing that there is a relationship between speed, angle of attack, and the surface area as far as the lift is concerned. If the surface area is more for the wing, then it will be giving more lift. If the speed is more, the lift is also more. Similarly, the drag also depends on the surface area, the angle of attack, and all that. So I will explain about this drag and lift when I talk about some problems that the aircrafts were facing in earlier stages of the 320 operation. Can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, here you can see this is the thrust lever position. I think the slide is not positioned properly. Anyhow, if you can just see that there are thrust levers which are so you can see on the bottom of the slide. Can you rotate it anti-clockwise, please? I don't know whether it is possible in this or not. Anti-clockwise. It's okay. I think we'll be able to see this. On the bottom of the slide, you can see that there are thrust levers. Yeah, now it is okay. So will you be able to increase the size? Yeah. On the right hand side, you can see that there are two thrust levers which will be moved by the pilots when they are operating the engine. So they have shown 0, that is the ideal position of the thrust lever. Then they will be moving the thrust lever forwards to toga, that is the farthermost position on the thrust lever during takeoff, if they want to have full power on the engines. If they don't want to use the full power, then they will be using flex takeoff thrust. So that is the next position. Then there is one more position, that is the climb. That means when the aircraft is in climb, they will be keeping the thrust levers in the climb position. On the left hand side, you can see from the idle to climb, they are writing it as auto thrust operating range with the two engines. I will explain what is auto thrust maybe a little bit later. For two engines, when the thrust levers are between idle and climb, the auto thrust will be working. And for single engine, the auto thrust will be working when the thrust levers are between idle and then flex MCT gate. And max takeoff, that is what is used when the engines require, when the pilots require maximum takeoff thrust. So can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, coming to the next item, that is what is called as auto thrust, how it is protecting the aircraft. Before I go into this particular slide, I will narrate what was the reason for the accident that has happened in Bangalore sometime in 1990, if I'm not wrong. So the flight was going from Bombay to Bangalore, and the pilots who were sitting in the cockpit were, both of them were experienced pilots. They were flying Boeing 737-200 before they were trained onto this Airbus 320 aircrafts. The takeoff was normal, climb, cruise, everything was normal. So when they were trying to approach Bangalore airport, so they are supposed to take care of the thrust on the engine. Thrust can be controlled manually when the thrust levers are moved in the cockpit. So then whatever the pilots are moving in the cockpit, the engines will be giving the given required thrust. Or the thrust can be controlled by auto thrust system also. Auto thrust, if they are using, then it will be giving the thrust in two modes. One is called as thrust mode, another one is called as speed mode or variable thrust mode. In case of auto thrust working in the thrust mode, it will be giving either ideal thrust or max climb thrust. If it is working in the speed mode, then it will be giving the variable thrust. So when the auto thrust will be working in the thrust mode for climb, it will be working in the thrust mode, so that whatever is the climb thrust, it is provided, and by controlling the forward speed of the aircraft, the pilots can either increase the rate of climb or decrease the rate of climb. When the aircraft is cruising, that is when it is maintaining a level flight, it will be working in the speed mode. Because altitude is fixed, speed the pilots can vary. To vary that particular speed, the thrust will be controlled by the auto thrust system. During descent, auto thrust will be working again in the thrust mode, and that time it will be giving the ideal thrust. That means whatever the minimum that is possible, the engines will be giving when the auto thrust is working in the ideal thrust mode. Then when the aircraft is approaching to land, they have to again go back to the speed mode. So this is how the auto thrust will be controlling the aircraft. During takeoff, it is controlled manually by the thrust levers in the cockpit. Once the takeoff is completed, during climb, auto thrust will be working in the thrust mode, that is it gives the climb thrust. When the aircraft is cruising, that is in a level flight, it will be working in the variable thrust mode, that is the speed mode. During descent, it will be again coming back to the thrust mode. That time it will be giving the ideal thrust, and during approach, they are supposed to go to the speed mode. So in this particular accident I was mentioning, when the aircraft was in the approach phase, the pilots didn't check that the auto thrust has gone to the speed mode. It was remaining in the thrust mode. As I was mentioning to you, during descent, auto thrust will be giving only ideal thrust. So with the ideal thrust, if the angle of attack is increased to reduce the speed of the aircraft, what will be happening? It will be approaching the stalling angle of attacks. In this particular graph, you can see. So the first one is what is called as VLS, that is the lowest selectable speed. The next one is called as V alpha prot. Then they have given V alpha max on the speed scale. Can you increase the size of this? Is it possible? So that it, yeah, no, yeah. No. Yeah, that is better. That is better. You can see on the left-hand side, there is the angle of attack versus the CL diagram, coefficient of lift. Angle of attack is given on the x-axis, and then y-axis has got the lift coefficient. So whenever the angle of attack is increasing, then it will be giving you more and more lift up to a certain point. So once the aircraft comes to the stalling angle of attack, the lift which is given by the wing will be suddenly dropping down. So there are certain values which are given. One is called as VLS, that is the lowest selectable speed by the computers. Then there is one alpha prot. I am not going to go into the details. Then you can see that there is one angle of attack which is called as alpha floor. So something will be happening when the angle of attack reaches this alpha floor. That means whenever the angle of attack which is given by the wings come to the alpha floor value, the auto thrust will be working in the speed mode, thrust mode, and it will be coming to the full toga thrust. That means takeoff go around thrust. So this is what is required whenever the angle of attack comes to the alpha floor. This is a protection which is given for the 320 aircraft, so that the pilots, if they are intentionally increasing the angle of attack with a thrust at a lower value, the aircraft may not be safe. So they have designed the aircraft to give the maximum thrust that is possible from the engines whenever the angle of attack reaches this alpha floor value. So what was happening on this particular flight was, the pilots were in the auto thrust mode, which was giving the ideal thrust. They have to reduce the speed. To reduce the speed, they are increasing the angle of attack. So the angle of attack has come to the alpha floor value. So when the angle of attack reaches the alpha floor value, as I mentioned to you, the auto thrust has to give the full thrust by accelerating the engines. But the acceleration will not happen instantaneously. It will be taking slightly more time, maybe around 8-9 seconds. So by the time the engines accelerated and then engines gave the thrust, the aircraft touched down on a golf course. Then it bounced, then again it touched down, and there is some 15 feet bank or something like that. It went and then hit that, and then aircraft crashed. All these things were because the pilots never noticed that the auto thrust was maintaining the idle thrust. If they would have noticed, then they would have put the aircraft into speed mode so that even if the angle of attack is increasing, it will be increasing the thrust to maintain the forward speed. As I told you that the lift depends on the forward speed and angle of attack mostly. So if the angle of attack is increased and the speed is not compensated, then it might be stalling and then it might be even crashing. So the same thing had happened in the Bangalore crash. Afterwards, of course, they had modified so many things in the aircraft. So now the aircrafts are more safe. The pilots will be given sufficient indications in the cockpit whenever the engines are not working in the appropriate mode, you can say. Okay, next slide, please. So this is what I was trying to explain. Auto thrust will be working either in the thrust mode or in the speed Mach mode, that is the variable thrust mode. And whenever the alpha floor is coming into picture, it will be giving the max thrust whenever the angle of attack is more than the specific value. In thrust mode, it will be giving a specific thrust, maybe the idle thrust or maybe the max climb thrust. In speed mode, it will be giving the variable thrust. Okay, another thing is alpha floor that I was mentioning to you, whenever the angle of attack is more, it will be giving you the toga thrust. That will be working only up to 100 feet radio altitude. So that when the pilots are bringing the aircraft to less than 100 feet radio altitude, they should be able to control the attitude of the aircraft, pitch attitude, speed and all that. They should be able to make a proper landing. And again, there was another crash which was connected to this particular alpha floor, which didn't come into picture when the A320 was carrying out a demonstration flight in somewhere in Toulouse. So what they were trying to do was, they wanted to show to the people, without increasing the thrust by the thrust levers, by simply pulling the nose up, the aircraft will be going up. That's what they wanted to demonstrate. So what they were doing, they were making an approach. And when the aircraft was close to the ground, they started pulling the nose up so that the angle of attack is increased. They wanted to bring the angle of attack to alpha floor value, and they wanted to show that the alpha floor will be giving the toga thrust automatically. But they didn't notice that in the bargain, the radio altimeter reading had gone to less than 100 feet because there were some trees in their approach path. And whenever the radio altimeter is reading less than 100 feet, the alpha floor will not come into picture. So the thrust didn't come up and the aircraft went into the other side of the runway. It went into some trees and then it crashed. So that is what had happened in the first crash of A320 somewhere in Toulouse. So afterwards, of course, the pilots are asked to notice what is the radio altimeter value whenever they are in the approach. There are some audio callouts that will be coming whenever the aircraft is in the approach, in the initial approach and final approach phases and all those things, so that the pilots are reminded about the radio altimeter values. So that was another reason the pilots didn't notice it properly, and it led to another crash in the initial period of the 320 operations. Next slide, please. So the computer that is controlling all these things is called as FMGC, Flight Management and Guidance Computer. It has got flight management portion, flight guidance portion. Flight management portion is managing the navigation, flight, proceeding of the flight along the flight plan, whatever flight plan the pilots are supposed to follow when they are flying from point A to point B. And it also gives what is the optimum speed so that the aircraft will be able to fly economically, and it will be providing the displays in the cockpit so that the pilots can monitor how the aircraft is progressing. Flight guidance part. This also is a part of the FMGC that has got autopilot command. If they are engaging the autopilot, autopilot will take care of the flying of the aircraft. Flight directors, there are some command bars which are available to the pilots, which will be directing the pilots how to fly the aircraft, whether to go up, to go down, to maintain the attitude, or to go to left turn or to go to the right turn. All those things are given by the flight director. Then the last one is auto thrust, which is a part of the FMGC. So this auto thrust is the one which is giving you the fixed thrust, variable thrust, and because of these reasons, as I explained to you that there were two crashes, one happened in France and another one happened in Bangalore. Next slide, please. So this is the panel which will be used by the pilots when they are interacting with the FMGC. This is what is called as flight control unit. But there are so many knobs, so many displays, so many push buttons for engagement of autopilot and all those things. I don't want to go too much into the details because this will be Greek and Latin for you people, because you have not seen a cockpit, I presume, so far, so you may not be able to make anything out of this. Next one, please. Okay, there are certain instruments which pilots will be monitoring in the cockpit. Can you just increase it? Yeah, that's enough. That's enough. So here you can see that EPR indication. EPR is nothing but the engine pressure ratio. So this is the pressure ratio at the back of the high pressure compressor, at the back of the turbine to the front of the engine compressor. Then exhaust gas temperature value. What is the temperature of the hot gases when they are leaving the turbine? Then the N1 value, N2 value. So these are the speed of the shafts, N1 shaft, N2 shaft. Then it also has got alpha floor indication, you can see on the top left hand side. So this alpha floor, whenever it is activated, the pilots will be coming to know when they get this indication on the display units. And of course, inside the EPR indication, you can see avail on the left side, reverse on the right side. Avail means the reverser is available. When the reverser is deployed, then they will be getting the reverse, which is shown on the right hand side in the display. So these are all the instruments the pilots will be monitoring when they are controlling the engine. Next one, please. Okay, so these are some of the other indications that the pilots will be monitoring. Fuel used, how much fuel is consumed by the engines, left engine, right engine. Then what is the oil quantity which is used for the lubrication of the engine? What is the oil pressure, oil temperature? Because they are supposed to monitor a particular value of the oil temperature, oil quantity. Then vibration, N1 and N2 vibrations. The pilots will be monitoring these values also. So there were some problems which are connected with the compressors in the initial stages of the IAE engines. So what happened was, when they were designing the engines, they were trying to maintain very minimum gap between the compressor blades and the compressor casing, so that the engines will be working more efficiently. And when the engines were operating, because of some thermal equilibrium problems, the casing was taking an oval shape. Some areas the casing was having more gap between the compressor blades and the casing. In some areas, there was less gap between the compressor blades and the casing. In the bargain, the blades were rubbing the casing in some areas of the casing, and they were getting fatigued and they were getting damaged also. So the engines, when they were in operation, especially in Air Lanka, when they were using these IAE engines, they noticed some cracks in the compressor blades. The IAE had removed the engines, they removed the compressor blades, and they saw that the damage was because of the uneven expansion of the engine casing. So they were trying to give some solutions. They were saying the pilots are supposed to monitor the N2 vibration. Whenever the vibration is more, they are supposed to shut down the engine. They have to cool the engine by dry cranking the engine. That means they have to just rotate the engine for a few minutes so that the engine will be cooled. Then they can go for engine start. Then they were also suggesting during takeoff, don't use APU bleed for any purpose. Try to use the engine bleed. That means remove some air from the compressor for different uses in the aircraft, like air conditioning, pressurization, and all that. So these recommendations were given because there were some damages which were happening to the compressor blades when the engines were in operation in the initial period of time. Of course, later on, when they had changed the blade design and then material, then the problems were, what do you say, rectified. Now in the Neo engines, another problem was coming up because combustion chambers were damaged during engine operation. They were not giving the life of whatever they were designed for. And there was another problem of some of the bearings giving some leakages of the oil. So these problems were there in the Pratt & Whitney Neo engines. You might have read in the newspaper, in the DGCA website also, that DGCA was asking the airlines to change the engines with a modified engine. They have given some timelines, and then some of the airlines had changed the engines before the timelines, and some airlines are still changing the engines. And DGCA was saying that unmodified engines, they don't want to fly. Till the engines are modified, those aircrafts should not be flying. That's what DGCA is insisting. So these problems were there in the Pratt & Whitney Neo engines, and now they are changing the engine design and all those things, and now the engines are working fine. So these things are monitored by the instruments by looking at the N1, N2 vibrations, and that is how the pilots will come to know whether the engines are working safe or not. Next slide, please. Of course, this is the engine fuel system. I think I will skip this. So this is the oil system that I was mentioning to you. No, this is the
Sir, unmute.
Sir, we are not able to hear you. The computer stuff.
Okay, 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 okay. Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, thank you.
Okay, I think there are some technical issues once again. So, anyways, I think thanks for attending the webinar. I think the speaker is having some technical issues again, so we'll close it. And if you have any questions, you can frame it. Probably you can give it to your class teacher, and we will get it answered from the speaker. If you have any questions, you can frame it and give it to your class teacher, and we will get it answered as soon as possible. Okay. So thanks for joining. Thank all the students and the staff. Maybe Mr. Prabhakar Raja can give a formal vote of thanks before we close the meeting.
Yes, sir. On behalf of Aeronautical and Aerospace Engineering Department, I thank the speaker of today's webinar, Mr. Subbarao, for his valuable talk on gas turbine engines and his insights about the basic flight performance. And once again, I thank management for the support and AESI Chennai branch for the extended support for our department. And finally, I thank all the faculty members and students for joining with us today, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.